Okay, we're going to begin this story. It's called Bloody Hell Mate, We're in Real Trouble Now. And it's from It's a Rum Life in France. And this story is from the year 2017. The story has another title. It's called The Flying Vase Story. As if we were not in enough trouble already, I must ask you to picture the situation. We're in a small town in centralish France. My younger sister has moved house after a very messy third divorce in the UK. She had ended up with some funds, but not a lot, hence the move to France, where property is very reasonably priced. This is back in 2017. She certainly could not afford any kind of home in the UK. Ruth and I have been the ones who suggested the move to her. We've been living in a lovely small town on the banks of the River Loire for about 10 years. I'm beginning to regret that original suggestion of her coming to live in France. Moving day. Ruth and I had spent the morning tidying her new home, cleaning windows and floors, etc., as she and her tow team travelled from the ferry port. She was later than anticipated and eventually arrived. They had got lost going through Saumur on the road south, her travelling companion towing all her worldly possessions in a removal trailer had still not sorted out the right road. Mind you, my sister did not seem overly concerned, but we were. It was a day we had offered to help her, not several days. I'd already spent quite some time visiting the property and arranging with the electric and water supply. That very morning I'd installed a new stop tap in her cellar for her mains water supply. There had not been one previously. The small semi-detached house is on 2 levels, and the living area is up several access stairs from the garden. Everything had to be taken up those stairs. The trailer had eventually arrived and we enjoyed a hot lunch that Ruth had prepared for all. The trailer could not get into the garden as the gates were too narrow, so everything had to be unloaded in the street outside and carried through the garden and up those stairs. I cannot remember the actual name of the trailer chauffeur and his wife, but they were evidently neighbours from the village where Jane lived previously in the UK. The way she created and abused the poor chap, you'd think she'd paid him to do the job, not that he had offered his services for free and even paid all his own fuel costs. The trailer was literally stuffed to the roof. Things did not seem to be packed, just pushed in. The projectile. So when this vase flew out at me, as we were both pulling and tugging at a bed mattress, it was a bit of a surprise. I was always good at ball games, particularly cricket. I could catch virtually any ball from any direction, but that vase was different. It flew out as if someone inside was propelling it by elastic. It flew past my head and landed on the road behind me, shattering into many pieces. I do remember it was brightly coloured, like those vases you see on BBC Antiques Roadshow from some exotic West Country pottery centre. Hence my colleague of the day saying, "Bloody hell, mate," etc., etc. I gathered all the pieces and placed them on the garden wall to await repercussions. We'd not long to wait. She arrived asking why something or other had not been pulled out and put into the house. She saw the coloured pieces on the wall and exploded. Evidently it had been a gift from her estranged second son and even more estranged fourth daughter of her third husband. Why this gave the said vase some credibility defeated me, as neither of these aforementioned persons rated any consideration in my estimation. Her second son was a raging pufter who'd who always knew everything better than anyone else, and the girl in her own particular way had always taken advantage of Jane at every hand's turn. My colleague in adversity was quite correct. We were in deep trouble. It was no good me asking why nothing was packed in boxes in the trailer, or why, if the thing was so important, it had not travelled on its own in her car. She went raging on about having to leave so much of her property behind, as there was insufficient room in this trailer. The vase was a priceless heirloom from inconsequential relatives. The rest of the day was a nightmare. Large items remained inside the trailer. Huge fridge freezer, large double bed that had yet to be reassembled, and countless other heavy items had to be moved up those stairs. If I'd had any sense at all, I would have gone on strike at that verbal abuse, which was not my fault. I did not know it was even there, lurking. It was just, I felt sorry for the other chap. He'd evidently helped empty her previous home, then dragged this trailer half across Europe at his own cost and was receiving the same abuse as myself. I could hardly leave him on his own, no matter how I felt. The day ended by the couple who pulled the trailer finding themselves some B&B accommodation in the town, and Ruth and I left for home much relieved. We learned more. Later that same year, we heard more of the story, the loading of that trailer story, from another friend who came to stay for a few days in September. Evidently, having seen the amount of stuff to shift, the friend who pulled the trailer had suggested that my sister hire a suitable sized Luton van to take everything. He would drive the van and return it back to the UK. Typical of everything, and virtually every time my sister makes an important decision, she totally ignores all the good advice she receives and normally does the opposite. The friend who had witnessed the closing stages of packing the trailer in the UK told us that my sister had told him that she did not have enough room in the trailer for much of her furniture. Family cycles, lawnmower, garden tools, etc. So would he be so kind as to take them all down to the local tip? He briefly began to mention why not a van, but the friend who was to tow this circus cracked him on the shin and with a knowing raised finger advised silence. You see, there was no actual packing. Things appeared to be put in loosely wherever there was a space. She believed she was getting more in that way, rather than conventional packing into boxes first. My friend, who was given the task of removing the excess furniture, etc., ended up by taking it all home and distributing it to friends who could make good use of it. Ruth and I continued to visit my sister from time to time. She actually had found herself a home, a convenient hour and a half travelling time from where we lived. We felt that was quite near enough. Some time later, another situation occurred where we gave her good advice, only to be totally ignored, and total disaster was the result. Even the good offices of her local neighbours was refused. The next situation, the very last, occurred when her first son and his family were visiting and wanted to come and see us for an hour or two. She insisted on coming too, and a dreadful disagreement arose as a result of her single-minded, know-it-all attitude. Nothing to do with her family, but everything turned sour. She dragged her family away after 20 minutes or so, and we have had 3 good years and peace and quiet as a result. There we are, that's the end of our little story. As they say, you can choose your friends but you can't choose your family. There we are, I hope you enjoyed that short story brought to you by Cracker Books, written and read by Keith Sanders. Now if you are watching this on YouTube, perhaps if you like it and like what we're doing, you might give us a like. It helps us with the YouTube people, and if you might also think about subscribing to our channel, then the YouTube people will let you know just as soon as we produce something different. Now after that, if you want to look at anything else that Cracker Books publish, then you can find some details on this panel. There are 10 complete ebooks that you can download, all kinds of subjects. They're all free to download, and there is the link to the bookcase. And then if you want to know more about what we do and why we do it and the full range of things we publish, then there is a link to our new website at www.crackerbooks.fr. That's an easy thing to remember, isn't it? It's new this year. www.crackerbooks.fr. And in the meantime, thank you for being with us, and goodbye till next time.